Appreciate
John,
that.
thank you. It's good to see you.
I aspire to Tom Cook's beard.
Hey, Tom, you guys are kind of the beards of the new thing. Hey, Stacy, I haven't seen you in a while. Maybe I just haven't noticed. Good to see you. Hey, Mon. Hey,
Hi there, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hi, Dale. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, John.
Hi, Sean. Hey, Rebecca. Hey, Barry. How's it going?
Hey, guys. Hey, John.
Hey, Arthur. Hey, Aaron. Andy, Craig, Chris Nealand. Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining. Jeff Davis, always a pleasure. Hey, Son. Hey, Rich. Alex. Lucas. I'm gonna miss some people as they pop in. Hey, Rebecca. Hey, Andy. Sorry, it populates like in order, and then all of a sudden it starts randomizing things. So if I miss somebody, sorry. Awesome. Let's wait a couple more minutes. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Jeff.
How about that, Ducky?
What's that?
How about Ducky?
Ducky?
Ducky or Peachy Keen?
I don't know.
You've never heard that expression?
No. Are you Ducky?
Feeling ducky.
Feeling ducky. I don't know that one. That's great.
Or Peachy Keen.
Peachy Keen. I know that one. Yeah, I know.
Okay. Well, it was around the same time.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe it was just a regionalization. Hey, Brian. Hey, Alistair.
I don't know. I was raised in the Northeast there, John.
Yeah, I'm a Midwestern guy.
Oh, well.
Tom, look at you, man. You're like, you got the beard and the long hair. Damn.
Yeah, I'm really letting myself go.
There you go. Well, that's, remote work, right? I know. I couldn't find my collared shirt today, so sorry, guys. One of those days. Hey, Eric.
Show us your board shorts.
Hey, John.
Oh, let's see my board shorts. You guys want to see my board short pattern today? Here, what do you guys think? Huh?
That's awesome.
Just got out of the water. Good surf session this morning. It was awesome. So yeah. Looks like we got a good group. Yeah. Hey, Dean Bosch is back. Nice to see you, man.
3 people.
Nice to see you. So how'd everybody, for those of us in the US, everybody have a good Thanksgiving? Kind of a crazy one, right? Being locked down and everything. So I hope everybody survived and got a chance to spend some time with their loved ones, for sure. Let's
I'm
wait
just here
another.
to travel I'm here to travel vicariously through you, John.
Well, I'm kind of, I'm not traveling too much, like the, surf breaks. Well, one of the surf breaks, the furthest one away is maybe 5 miles. So that's kind of keeping it pretty local. So, well, let's wait a couple more minutes or maybe another minute. And then let's start with the breakout and kind of that's always my favorite time, but I hope everybody had a good couple weeks. I missed you guys. And got a bunch of really cool stuff to talk about today. San and Alex and Eric and Mafi and I have been talking about business model stuff, and I think we want to talk a little bit about that. And we worked on a landscape and sent you guys that, and hopefully you have some comments on that. It's actually just a starting thing. So, but before we jump into things, let's go to breakout.
Sounds great. For those of you that are new here today, we do a 5 to 6 minute breakout room where you get to do a little meet and greet with some colleagues. So we'll kick that off here right about now. Oh, we got to add a few more people in here. Hang on. And we're off.
All right. See you on the other side. All right, everybody back. That's always awesome. I love that. Thanks for taking the time to jump into all that stuff. Hey, I don't know if everybody saw, but I put a link in. The guys at the Future of Work, in Joseph Fulham, those guys that we have the Future of Work department at, or at least the I guess it's a lab at Harvard, and they did a pretty good report. I thought and I put it in the link of the email. But it just had lots of good statistics from some of the interviews they've been doing on the adoption of open talent, and just another point of view. So if other folks have, anything else that they want to share, just please get those things to me, and I'll make sure I get them out in in the emails and you know, anything you guys find that you have questions about, I can get you to the right people, to the authors and anything like that. So awesome. Hey, is Jen or is Greta on the call today? Anybody from the, I know Chris Stanton said he's got something else going on.
I haven't seen Greta or Jen join yet.
Oh yeah, Jen's on vacation this week. That's right. So Jen and I have been working on, I've got the book proposal pretty much dialed and waiting. I've got a meeting tomorrow with an editor to really figure out, you know, the next steps, get the book proposal out, but really, you know, we're using the language of, you know, creating a networked organization. The idea that, you know, and Jeff, I'm using a lot of inspiration from you, but kind of using NASA as an example, right? Like trying to say, okay, how do you, and Steve, you too, but how would you view NASA? You could view it as, you know, the 17,000 employees, or you could view it as 17,000 employees and all the contractors connected at NASA at work, right? So whatever that number is. And then you could say, like you said, Steve, that, you know, by connecting with COSI, with you know, connecting through COSI with the 40 platforms, 110 million people. So is NASA really, you know, 17,000 people, employees, or is it a network of 110 million, you know, that million people plus or minus? And I think that's a big question. I think there's a lot of learnings to do there. So Jeff, thanks a lot for sending a lot of the case studies and things like that out. We're definitely going to use that as a, you know, prime example of a way forward. So and as I get that book proposal further along, certainly, you know, Mary and Sheila has been really helpful. They're doing some great playbook work. I don't know if Sheila's on the call today, but maybe, I know Mary couldn't make it, but maybe she could explain some of the persona work she's doing and stuff like that. So let's see what else. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about today before we launched into the kind of CTW stuff is, you know, one of the things that Catherine and Brandon and I have been trying to do for a while is create some kind of, you know, we've always talked about this, right? Common language and the ability to kind of create less friction for the you know, for demand side. And so one of the things that we've thought about is kind of taking a note out of the whole Lumascape, the marketing advertising world, or the digital marketing world. You know, Terry Kwanzaa created this thing called the Lumascape, which is essentially a landscape for the marketing services place. So we've tried to do that for a couple of years, but one of the things we've really struggled with is we always would go down a wormhole and try to make too many categories. So we kept it really, really high, and Catherine and Brandon did a great job in the last week and a half pulling that together. And so, and started really high categories, and we put it out on a Mural board. So we sent you guys all a link to that. But Catherine, you might want to just pull that up, pull your screen up, or Brandon, and just, you guys talk through kind of where we're at and just get people's feedback. We can talk a little bit right now about it, but I'd love for you guys to kind of lean in and do some sticky notes on it, and, you know, so we can evolve this and create some kind of common language about what the categories are and where things are going from from everything we're doing. So
yeah, the link is in the chat. So I see a bunch of people jumping in now. Catherine, you want to share your screen and walk us through it?
Sure.
For those of you that haven't used Mural before, it's a virtual whiteboard. Lots of great
Are you
tools.
seeing?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, our good friend Paul Estes is now, Dean, what's his title there now? It's like Chief of Community or Chief Community Officer or something.
Yeah, it's some big, large title, which is appropriate for Mr. Estes.
Exactly. I'm sure he'll totally rock it.
He's in charge of evangelizing the tool, which you're seeing here now, for use in broader communities, especially remote, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally. And I think the place he saw it for the first time was on the design sprint when Voltage Control used it. So
yep.
So anyway, hey, Catherine, Brandon, you want me to walk through this, or do you guys want to walk through it? What do you guys want to do?
Go for it.
Walk me through it.
Okay, so we decided to keep it super, super high level. And so where we started was we took the SIA, latest 2020 report on the gig economy and decided to just look at the tagging, how they tagged all the platforms. And what we found was that it looked like SIA just let everybody tag it themselves. So, in the marketing world, you had like 40 different tags. And so we tried to bring it to a really high level of abstraction so we could start getting agreements. And so if you start on the left, obviously you've got organizations, and then you've got, kind of two ways that we've envisioned people interacting with the marketplaces. And that is, direct or DIY, which would be, let me just see here. I can't quite see it. Oh, which would be kind of, thinking about building your own kind of a COSI or directly connecting with people who already have experience. And then hold on one sec. Could you, let me just see here. And so, and then a little bit lower, you've got consulting and managed services. And I think that's, obviously we don't have all the right logos in here yet, but this is just kind of a sampling. And then if you move to the right, kind of three kinds of things, external platforms, internal platforms, and then idea management. We're not sure if those are the right categories, but we thought that was kind of the highest level of abstraction. And then we really kind of just started blowing out the business services, or sorry, the external platforms with business services, marketing, information technology, product design, and general tasks. Now, obviously, if we think about those, there's lots of detail in there, right? You could look at business services, and you could go down to, legal services. So lots of abstractions, and just like information technology, you could go to data science, and I'm sure there's a wormhole for a lot of things. The other abstraction we thought about too, and we had a big discussion about, is in each one of these categories, there are those platforms that have built kind of consulting services in there. And so we need to figure out how to build some space in there for that as well. But then, obviously there's space for internal platforms down below, and we just put some representative platforms in here, and then idea management software. So as you look at this initially, what I'd love, we could have a dialogue now about it, but I'd love for you guys to take the time to think about, are we putting the right categories together? Are we creating the right thing? Is this something that's going to be helpful for the marketplace? Can we use it? Can we make it a living document that the group really leans into? And so anyway, open the floor to you guys.
I think, John, this looks, of course, awesome. I think it's a great compendium of everything. One thing that I would add at the bottom, I would actually make internal platforms and idea plant management similar at the same level as the external platforms, but add more compliance companies like the MBOs and green lights, the financial transaction enablers. There's tons of companies that are helping, freelance specific bankers. There's a whole range of companies that are helping enable the interchange between clients and companies.
Yeah.
So I think I think that then starts looking like a holistic stack.
I love it. I think that's a really, really good insight. Thanks, Balaji. Who else has anything else?
John, I think this looks really good. I'm looking at it on the screen here, and one of the things is within the business services, it might be, with a little bit of digging, some ways to look at some differentiation within that list. It's a really crowded list.
For sure.
I noticed that there are a couple of ones that are on all of them, which is a challenge whenever you try to put a stake in the ground. And I think that it might be a good idea to look into some of these things and get a little bit more granular, because, for example, looking at Talmix, they're on 4 of the 5 external platform, chevrons. So,
right.
Because if you ask them, and one of the reasons why, I think you're very right in thinking that SIA, they just asked them to define themselves, but there is a little bit of a stake in the ground just to get some classification.
Yeah, I totally agree, Brian. I think that's right. I mean, I guess I envision, I mean, if you pulled up the Terry Kwanzaa, Lumascape, and maybe Brandon or Catherine, you could share that in the chat, but it's really complex now, right? It's got dozens of bubbles. And so each of these bigger categories then is broken out into dozens of sub bubbles. And well, it looks like we lost the mural board there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot more detail. So, oh, there it is. It's down below. It got moved. Yeah. So if you guys could, launch into it and throw some comments up, write some stickies. I mean, obviously we wanted to just, create something that people could give their opinions to. So obviously, we weren't too concerned about making it perfect or correct, more something to react to so that we can kind of get everybody's point of view in there and start creating something. And then let's just, use it. Let's make this the prototype and, evolve it along the way. And, hopefully we get everybody represented here in the right way, but it's something that's comfortable and a thing that we can show our clients to say, here's kind of the fullness of the industry and here how things flow through, from organization to freelance talent, the use of freelance talent.
Yeah. Yeah, John, I really like this because there've been a number of these over the years that have come out. But what I like about this one is that orchestration side on the left hand. It kind of shows that there can be a way that you don't have to navigate all these. I do think the danger of having all of those, and especially when you get into that replication we talked about of one group applying in multiple places, it starts to become overwhelming for organizations, and more that's what I'm hearing is almost a reason not to use this stuff is it's just too hard to navigate. And so if there's a way we can emphasize that message of you don't necessarily have to navigate it, or you can pick a small slice and still show the robustness, right? I mean, because you really do want to have those. The question is, can you get that all in one infographic, or does that need to be two, that it kind of has two different messages? I don't know, or multiple, or does it need to be a tool? I really still like the Harvard tool that they have. Although graphics always valuable.
Yeah, I think it's all yes and, right? I think it's, I think the one thing that the Lumascape's done really well is it shows this kind of deep complexity. It's overwhelming for a reason, right? I mean, obviously Terry Kwanzaa is in the investment banking business, so he's trying to show that there's tons of robustness and lots of complexity. One of the things I think that I've heard lately a couple times is, that one of the hindrances to adoption is that, are there a lot of players in this space? If you're not familiar with it, right? Like, is there a robustness of a marketplace? That's the first thing. And the second thing is like, what's the process of adoption, right? If there's a standard process for adoption, then, all of a sudden people are saying, oh yeah, it's a developed market, versus if there's not a standard way to adopt, open talent, then it's like, well, maybe this marketplace is too early in its development for me as a possible user of these services. So, but that's great feedback, Steve. Thanks.
Maybe just to build on that, Steve. Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at all the Lumascapes, it's sort of like you often have the same notion of, well, A, this is absurd, and B, somebody needs to build a business to make this all easy. I think that's actually not to preempt, but I think there's actually a little bit of an opportunity of like, who's the Sherpa or the guide for this complex marketplace, and how valuable is that, having that guide for both supply side and demand side?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, San. I think that really, levers off of the conversation we had yesterday, right? How do we create something, in the context of our community that everybody benefits from? I think it's super important, as I told San and Alistair and Eric and Mafi yesterday, that, let's create something that we all win, right? Like, everybody wins, and everybody who's involved gets to have the opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity, take advantage of not only being a part of this community, but financially, the opportunities that are going to present themselves as we get more organized as an industry. It's pretty awesome stuff. And I'm definitely, in awe of this group and in awe of being able to be a member of it for sure. So any other thoughts? Yeah.
Could you answer a question for me and maybe on behalf of all the other noobs in the
Yeah,
group?
yeah. Thanks,
Like,
Aaron.
I'm happy to be here to learn about all the other platforms that are out there and how they work. Like that is all the benefit I need to be here, and I'm excited to get all that information. But I keep hearing about these different work groups you have, and then the second entire website and that initiative. And can you maybe explain to me what specifically the goal is of all these other directives that are going on? There's so much work. I've been trying to pick it up. Like
I know. Yeah, that's super good, man. I think it's, I think we're in that kind of I would describe us as a collective being in this primordial goo, right? Like this place where we're trying a lot of things, and we're trying, we're experimenting and building things. So we have a bunch of, for those that are new, just a little historical context. We had Open Assembly that's connected with the Laboratory of Innovation Science at Harvard. Had a group called The Collective, which were 15 companies, 20 companies that met monthly. And then when COVID hit, we decided, let's just open this up to everybody instead of a private meeting talking about stuff. Let's make it a public meeting and let's make it global. And let's make it weekly. And then all of a sudden, this group kind of aggregated by itself, just kind of found each other. And I think a few months in, everybody said, well, this is great to have these conversations. What are we going to do? And so we had a design sprint, and out of the design sprint, the idea of the Center for the Transformation of Work came out, which is a 501c6, which we've institutionalized. And then, Open Assembly being the for-profit arm. And so what we've been working through, and the work groups have been amazing, is like, how do we put these things together? Like, how do we create a movement so that it's a funnel? Like, people can come, and if they want to just lurk or just want a little information, they can come through one way, which is the CTW, the Center for the Transformation of Work. And if they really want to get involved, then that's more the Open Assembly, the for-profit organization. So think of it as a big concert that, if you want to be in the audience, awesome. We'd love to have you. You can kind of, participate in that way. Or if you want to kind of, be really, really involved, you can be on the stage, or you can be behind stage and start determining what's going to, what's the content and what the direction is. So that's, I don't know. I mean, I'd just ask the rest of the group, is that a good way to describe what we're trying to do here? Steve, Balaji, Diane, San, any of you guys?
Yeah, we've got, different representatives from each of the work groups if we want to explain what the other work groups are doing.
Yeah, we're going to do that in a little bit here for sure. Okay. I definitely want to catch up on, what people are, maybe today as we talk about CTW, explain the work group, and then explain what you're thinking about. So
my mum still doesn't understand what I do for a living, so there's no way I'm explaining this group.
I totally agree.
Well, hey, John, thank you for trying. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
John, a truer statement was never made. A truer statement. My parents don't know what I do either.
Hey, Jeff, what were you?
Yeah, just one other quick comment. Steve and I were going over like 10 years of the COSI experience and how you try to infuse new tools into a large organization, which is, kind of the concept you've got here, choosing platforms. And one of the things somewhere down the road that might be helpful, if there are 2, 3, 4 sort of macro decision level criteria you can extract, that you could pop something into this matrix of tools and maybe 8 or 10 pop out based on what you're trying to do. So that's some sort of filtering mechanism, somewhere along the line might be helpful.
I totally agree, Jeff. I mean, I think we way back when, probably 3 years ago, pre all this stuff, we had a contract to create a thing called the Open Tool Registry, and the Open Tool Registry was just that, right? It was a tagged group of 80 platforms in the marketing world that you could just, it kind of was a self-forming graphic, but it also you could say, I need a advertising platform for creative in Abu Dhabi. It would pop up with the 3 platforms that would work for you. But I think that's a great idea and a great distractions or extraction.
And one of the work streams that Brian Pena is leading for credentialing, wouldn't that be a way for us to set a sort of framework of standards for us to qualify certain platforms and come up with, maybe some leaderboards of in each of these categories, we define standards of quality and delivery of this work. And based on this, here's what we would recommend versus, so this is a great map so we can all learn who are the players on the space, but maybe there's something that we come up with that is, now based on a framework we've developed and is a bit more of an advisory type of.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's, I think it actually came from maybe Balaji. Balaji, you brought up the point a while ago of having, the ability for clients to be able to understand what platforms were enterprise ready, right? Which ones, if I hire this platform and I throw it to the wolves in procurement, are they going to be able to survive? And so I think Stephanie, that's a really good point. I mean, I think that the point of this exercise, right, is just this is a crawling, with the hopes of walking, with hopes of running. But I think we're still at the crawl stage of identifying all the platforms that are out there. And obviously that's going to be impossible because each day there are tons of new platforms that are popping up. But the idea that at least we get our hands on it and then we start, Brian, and I've had lots of conversations about the accreditation for platforms. And, once we get this done, we'll be able to launch into that. Certainly a strong work group.
I mean, we can still, there's still a lot of stuff that can be divined from just some of the work, what the working groups have done already in terms of the playbook and just simply the definitional sorts of things. Really from a procurement perspective, you just have to give a framework of how to define and differentiate between them because it's a really confusing space right now.
Mm-hmm.
So even minimal insight can make a mountain of difference for a lot of these folks who are just getting started on their journey.
I totally agree with that. No, I think that's.
We don't need to over-engineer it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that was, one of the things we took away from this exercise, Brandon and Catherine and I, is that, the last couple of years we've tried to do this, but we've spent so much time trying to figure out what those nuanced, subtle categories are. And it's like, we just decided a week and a half ago, like, let's put a stake in the sand and let the market decide, right? Let's let everybody react and go from there. So yeah, great stuff. Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, well, while you think it's complicated now, I think there's a whole lot of complications to add yet.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, for example, hackathon and hack-related tools and technologies, but also all of the stuff around sharing economy, task-oriented work.
Yeah, I totally agree, Chuck.
That collaborative economy one that I think I shared earlier.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of tasks now that can be done, on a micro level for organizations and companies. And I did chat out that there's a growing pool of tools that are starting to point themselves at leadership. So micro coaching, micro capability and leadership development and leadership augmentation. That's a whole space that's not clearly defined yet either, but it's starting to grow. So it's getting more complicated, if anything. Yeah,
I totally agree, Chuck. And I think, at least I envision one, sometime once we get the B2B side of things, do we also, like you said, is there, do you put the sharing economy and B2C side of things in here? And then where does crowdfunding, evolve, or at least belong? Is it in this community? Is it in this ecosystem? I find it, and I haven't talked to the guys in a while, but I found it really interesting that, a few years ago, Indiegogo was getting into the business of kind of, product development and product design for, companies like Anheuser-Busch, that they would go out and essentially, micro fund the entrepreneurs to do interesting things and use that as an kind of an innovation source. So really good points there.
John, just one thought here that, the marketing landscape that we're mimicking is really done for the view of a CMO, and it's organized by usually function about what it does. In this case, we're building a scape here that is really modeled to help a range of roles, and almost organizing this by roles could be interesting. What's important to COO? What might be important to a CFO? To marketing, to content development. So just a thought, but we find when we're working on the committee that persona matters.
Yeah.
And thinking about what's relevant to a sales team versus a COO could be cutting to the chase for the viewer.
Yeah, and I love that, man. I think that, once we get this down, that would be, to build on Jeff's idea, right? It'd be super interesting to have an interactive tool to be able to select, your role inside the organization, and then have this kind of repopulate to support kind of what you're thinking about and the role you're in. I mean, this, this graphic to show that the complexity, and then a tool to actually overcome that complexity might be really, really interesting.
Could be.
So yeah, thanks,
John.
Yeah. Yeah, Julia.
So, hi again. Every time I am in this conversation, the thing that keeps going through my head is the people side, the impact on the organization.
Right.
Onboarding, so that culture is somehow retained and so forth. And I appreciate all the external platforms that are really there to facilitate connecting freelancers with organizations, or organizations with a talent pool that they are unaware of. But I also think there may be an opportunity to create supportive services for organizations in using the technology effectively, and then being able to fully leverage both their internal and external staff.
Yeah,
and
no,
I find that missing from the board.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a place that's just developing. I don't know. Is Diane still on the call? I don't know. I know she was on early and maybe she popped up, but I one of the things I'm impressed with what Diane Finkhausen's doing at Shoshin Works is it's she's starting to look at that. And obviously Balaji, you're doing that at Deloitte Pixel, and kind of that middleware. I mean, I guess I would put it in kind of the consulting, managed services side of things, but I think that's a really, really interesting thing. Hey, Alistair, I mean, one of the conversations, just to build on Julia's thing, maybe we could just kind of switch speeds, is, one of the things we've been having a conversation on that, with Alistair and San and Mafi and Eric about how do we organize all this stuff, and gotten really far down the road. But I was really impressed with the way Mary Milano and Alistair explained kind of what's going on over at the Exponential Organizations. They wrote a book, Samil and these guys wrote a book, and then they have a kind of a crowd of coaches and folks, coaches and consultants that are all using the same, consistent methodology, and built kind of a funnel for anybody coming into the marketplace. But Alistair, I mean, do you want to explain the details of what they're doing and kind of the vision that you've laid out to us that I'm super excited about?
I just want to check, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. So this is not a master strategy. It's about discovering each other. I mean, if I look at the page that you put in front of me here, there's like 120 or 130 companies around the world. But this is not collective thinking. And the difference between software companies that are born with special capabilities compared to collective thinking is that special capabilities can't beat collective thinking. And in our community, we have people that are interested in fixing big problems. So I just have a few ideas, because I know if I look at the community that's sitting here at the moment, it's not about trying to scale wisdom or technology or machine learning or AI. I mean, the background I come from is like mathematics, science, economics, and all those kind of things. And if you put that into the economy, it's very, very, very difficult to commoditize that. And if I look at, there's two worlds which might not be close to everybody in this community, which is Singularity University and OpenEXO. OpenEXO is very good at exposing knowledge to the collective community, but you need to harvest that. And there's a lesson to be learned there, which I think we as a collective community need to learn from OpenEXO and bring it to our community, which is not based on the principles of I don't want to say Singularity University, but I need to be very careful because I work in these communities and how do I put this? It's not based upon intelligence, it's based upon insight. So use your insight for free to help other people grow is the best way that I can put this, John. I don't want to carry on too long in this space, but that's some basic thoughts. I have a lot more to say, but not for now.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. No, I think that's super important. San, do you have anything to add there? I mean, I think you've been so helpful in working on this model.
Yeah, thanks, John. I get to follow Alistair.
I know, always a pleasure.
I mean, I think specifically, I could pull it up and share it if you want, but you know, specifically, I think we were looking for. We've been searching for a value proposition that felt really motivating, and I think we've sort of found it. And I think some of the comments from the skate support that. We've got some more testing to do with buyers, which we've got lining up. But then what's really interesting is that when we got to that value proposition, how it sort of organizes the roles and behaviors of both CTW and OA as sort of a symbiotic pairing, even though one potentially is about reputation building and the other one is about revenue generation. There's a very interesting sort of symbiotic relationship between the two.
Do you mind if we share that? I mean, like,
I think that's awesome. Yeah, let's share it, man. I mean, it's a prototype, and I've got some comments to make on it. But
like, I want to swap some stories with you, Sam, and let's put this out there immediately because this is where you impact humanity super fast. Do you mind if we can do that? Sorry to push you.
I'm pulling it up. I wasn't ready for the radio show, so I'm pulling it up. Give me a sec.
No worries. Yeah, and I think this is all in beta, guys. But I think, you know, I mean, one of the principles we've talked about in the group is, you know, how to create an ecosystem where, you know, everybody benefits, that we take, like Alistair suggested, take a lot of friction out of the system, and make sure that, you know, people can adopt open talent much quicker, and understand this kind of complex ecosystem, you know, much easier. Like Julia, you said, you know, the guides and the folks to help people get over the hurdle. So it's on. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's coming up now.
Let's come around. Exactly. Yeah. This is what you want. Like this.
Yeah, perfect.
So this is not meant to be an external statement. This is just a idea statement, so it's clunky. But I think everyone kind of responded to the complexity of the marketplace, and there's another complexity, there's another dimension to the marketplace, which is like if you think about the Lumascape for digital advertising, for example, everyone's at a certain level, at a set level of delivery, versus in the talent space, there's actually different levels of delivery, you know, depending on application. People don't necessarily need, you know, pixel or top tile talent for certain tasks, and in other tasks they're absolutely essential. So there's this level setting that we needed to look at and made it even more complex. So really the value proposition was around, in simple language, making it easier for people to transact in an open marketplace. So, you know, access to those level set capabilities, the talent that you need, or the talent that you are, a standardized, kind of reliable, understandable accreditation and matching for, you know, task and talent. And then the sort of backing by an industry standard setter and trusted leading organizations in academia and commerce. So that was sort of like the value, the kind of hypothesis that we were working with. And then when I mentioned the prototype for this symbiotic structure, it sort of looks something like this, and don't pay too much attention to numbers per se, but just value sets, I guess is the best way I could say it, where we have, you know, we have a model around reputation building, which is really through advocacy, accreditation, lobbying. and a sort of a membership type organization, tiered membership organization. And then we have not so much a new platform, but a Sherpa to the platforms, an aggregator and curator for needs for the entire market, for the entire industry, essentially. That, you know, both from talent and demand side can be revenue generating.
Yeah, and obviously this is, you know, super early on, so we, you know, there are lots of other things to think about here, like, you know, upskilling and all the educational stuff, Steve, you've, you know, brought to the fore. How do we, you know, help people in different levels always be kind of, you know, creating that flywheel of work and learn that we've talked about, but lots of other things to think about. And like San said, we're still working through the models, but, you know, if I encourage these guys, like I'm totally willing to make this, you know, an open thing, that let's tokenize it. Let's, you know, give an opportunity for participation on revenue and, you know, and ownership, and however we want to tackle it. But I think this is such a potent, powerful group. And, you know, my overall goal personally is just, I want to see this happen after being in this marketplace for, you know, for 20 or some years, you know. And so how do we take the most friction out of it and share with all the hard work that everybody's been doing already, share the possibilities, and also share the possibilities with our, you know, with clients and people coming into the market, not only the talent, but also, you know, the folks that are really taking a risk in demand side organizations to do something new, right? They need a community, they need support. And like you said, Julia, you know, the culture question to me is the biggest question that we have to answer. How do we normalize this? You know, a couple of years ago, Kareem and I ran a little session in San Francisco, and I think, you know, Kareem said something super profound, and that was, you know, hey, as soon as all this stuff is ordinary and boring, it's going to be really successful. But until it's ordinary and boring, it's going to have these kind of friction points, right? And so that's, I think, the biggest thing we need to figure out. So, any thoughts? Any, you know, comments?
I have a question. Hi guys.
Yeah, man.
I'm fairly new here. Thanks.
Hey, Jamie.
I was wondering about the kind of assessment phase. So it's amazing to have this pool of talent and that reach the companies that need it. But what if they don't know what they need? How do they get
I totally agree.
from knowing what problem they have to knowing what talent is going to help solve that problem?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I've been thinking a lot about that as I've written this book proposal. I mean, I've written about it, and I totally love what Jeff and Elizabeth, Jeff Davis and Elizabeth and, you know, Jin wrote in that paper a bit ago. Maybe Jeff, could you share a link to that in the chat? Such a great, you know, it's kind of their learning at NASA over a bunch of years, and it's kind of learn, experiment, build, scale. I think that those are the four, right? I think there's one that's we kind of used a different term. Is that right, Jeff? Learn, experiment, build, scale.
We actually had scale and sustain, which probably
scale and sustain.
Could collapse into one phase.
Right. You know, I think there's probably, you know, to Jamie, to answer your thing, is like, I think there's probably a couple others, right? There's probably an assessment, right? So assess, you know, learn, experiment, build, scale, and then probably on the backside there's probably an optimize, right? And so, but I think that's one of the things that, you know, one of the things that we could do as we build a playbook and build this book is like, how do we all co-create an assessment tool or an assessment, you know, set of questions to give somebody some kind of guidance, right? If you have a set of 30 questions and then the ability to say, oh, if you score this, then you're in the learn phase and you've got a couple more stages of the learn phase to get through, or if you score this score, then maybe you're in the experiment phase. But I totally agree with you. I think that it's such a fluid marketplace. Nobody even knows where they are, right?
Right.
So great point. Well taken.
Can I just throw one in there, John? Just really quickly. I don't want to hog but to Jamie's point, I think because there's a lot of comments around like best in class, because I know we used that, but we qualified it, because I think that's like the key of it is actually there's a fit component here. There's not just a qualification component. There's a fit component, and so we were struggling with this notion of best in class was what we actually meant was within that class, like the best fit for your need, whether you're supply side or demand side. Like how do we become that service of delivering fit? And whether that what are those tools, what are those assessments? Are they actually skill assessments or a different kind of brain matching assessment, whatever they may be? But I think the word fit is like really, really valuable, because fit is what you do have in a closed talent scenario, right? Because you otherwise you remove those resources from your closed talent, and if they don't fit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think you have with need, it's kind of one-sided, whereas fit takes into consideration the environmental concerns of what that need will be filled with and what they'll be entering into. So,
yeah,
cool.
Going back to the culture piece, I think is a really important thing. When you're talking about the open platform, because every organization has certain behavioral expectations that are built into the culture. And if you can identify what those primary areas are, that could be included in the kind of like the assessment. So for example, somebody may work well under pressure, another person, and they want that within the organization, and so forth. So I think that also has to be factored into this conversation about kind of like a readiness checklist.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Any other comments? Hey, Dean, you've been kind of quiet. You always have a lot to say, and good perspective. Any reaction you have from what's been going on, what's been talked about?
Yeah, well, I'm a little late to the game here, so don't understand the complete scope. But what strikes me is, I mean, most of what we're talking about here are competitive thrusts that private businesses and platforms focus on as a strategic differentiator. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's important to know, like, from my perspective, so I worked for a platform for lots of years and talked with other platform leaders, and like one's ability to detect what is the actual need, one's ability to discern who is the right fit, and discern who has the right skill is indeed the holy grail, as it were, of this business. And so the challenge that's being presented here is actually kind of the proprietary strategic thrust of any given platform. So I mean, in that context, it's an interesting conversation of why would anyone share that, I guess, is what's going on in my head.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I mean, I think that, from my perspective, one of the, I totally agree. And I think that's where the marketplace is. And it feels like that what we need to do is create some of those things that we're all kind of playing at a low level, right? The skill level and the secret code. But I think what you'll find, or at least one of the things I find magically, is that in especially like in the activities I'm involved with from a sports scenario, right? When people are starting to share the secret sauce of training for climbing, Dean and you and I love climbing, right? I'm so amazed when people share their secret tips that there's a whole group of people that take that, metabolize it, and then the next set of, of abilities is just advanced that much further. So it seems like there's this, discovery phase of folks in the private sector kind of use the proprietary methodologies and philosophies. Those get kind of, those get kind of commoditized, but it's a cycle that happens, right? In any growing industry that there's kind of from proprietary or discovery to kind of generic, way of using things. And it feels to me like we're in that stage where we need to create some kind of baseline so that, the demand side feels more comfortable with adoption, isn't confused by talking to a bunch of different platforms and saying, those are 5 different points of view and I don't understand how there's a marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a good analogy.
Just an idea. So, hey, Balaji, go ahead.
Steve's comments, the value of open. Yes, there is value of open, but how do you make it? Yeah, but how do you monetize the value of open? I'll just leave with that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's
right. It's
super good question.
There's this tension. We're sitting here selling open, right? Because it's so wonderful and we know what it is, and yet there is still a proprietary concern that to be competitive. So it's that was my know when to hold them.
Yeah, exactly.
Song, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I know we only have a couple of minutes here. We haven't gotten to the, to the working groups, and sorry about that, Aaron. I think there's a lot of great stuff going on. Just to highlight, maybe, I don't know, Chuck, if you want to mention, we had a really good meeting you guys did on badges. And I think one of the things is creating some kind of badging system for people who have been on the calls and people have been contributing. We're starting to work on that. And, San, thanks for kind of talking through the business model stuff. But Chuck, you got a sec to talk about that?
I should defer to Ash. She's got it all down.
Ash. Oh yeah, sorry, Ashley. I didn't even see you there.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's okay. Yeah, no worries. No, Chuck, I appreciate that. I know we've been having a few side conversations too. We've had a couple conversations around sort of how do we classify ourselves as, not classify, how do we categorize ourselves as a community so that not only can folks find each other, but so that folks outside of this group can find us. And what do those roles look like? So we have some preliminary ideas on how to break that up between folks in this group that have been with us since March, members that will join the CTW, and then folks that are going through our accreditation, our academy program. So that's all we have so far on badges, but it's less about badges and more how do we connect with each other? How do we find each other? What does our digital presence look like so that we can amplify this community?
And we hope to give you a little Christmas gift before the
holiday. Yeah, there you go. I love that. I love that. Ashley, just want to, because you're running the marketing committee as well, and you and I have been having a conversation. I think it'd be, just lay out the goal of like, how do we, and maybe it's just a question to everybody, how do we help accelerate each other's, thoughts and the writings, and we create more of a movement and a network to accelerate everybody's point of view.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking at opportunities to kind of organize and then share that thought leadership and making sure that it's coming from one source, whether it's Open Assembly or CTW or what does that look from a digital presence? So I think the conversations have been around, we need to define our jumping off point a little bit more clearly. And then I think it'll be a lot more easy to operationalize what does that content strategy look like so that we can give you all who want a voice in the community, especially in a digital way, the platform and the opportunity to showcase your expertise from an educational perspective as part of the community.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're right at the time. Anybody have any last words? Thanks a lot for a very fruitful and engaging and conversation. Anybody have anything last thing to talk about? Nope. Yeah. And let's, thanks a lot. Let's jump into the, landscape. We'd love your feedback in the next week, and we'll be able to, constantly update that and put it out there. So love this discussion. Thanks, Steve, for the comments, and, San for the leadership, and John Healy, sorry I didn't call on you. I see you over in the corner here, and Karan, but, always loved your words of wisdom, and Eric, didn't, hear from you today, but lots more to talk about, and love the work that's happening. Feels like we're really getting somewhere too. So shoot me a note on the side and let me know what else I can be doing, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Remember, next week we're going to be a little later because we're going to have Jesse Arundel from Commonwealth Bank from Australia. It's doing some unbelievably cool work, and I just think it's going to be such an inspiration to hear him talk. But obviously, this time of day in Australia is a little bit hard for him to get up at 3 a.m. So we want to try to start burying the time of the calls so that we get more global participation. All right, guys, thanks so much. Love you guys, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.